Welcome to Relevance. The world's greatest podcast. Hosted by author Mike R. Aikins. Where they dare to talk about topics that really matter.
Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Chapter 9. Persistence, the sustained effort necessary to induce faith. The eighth step to riches. Persistence is an essential factor in the procedure of transmuting desire into its monetary equivalent. The basis of persistence is the will of power. Willpower and desire, when properly combined, make an irresistible pair. People who accumulate great fortunes are generally known as cold-blooded and sometimes ruthless. Often they are misunderstood. What they do have is willpower, which they mix with persistence and use as a basis of their desires to ensure the attainment of their objectives. Henry Ford has been generally misunderstood to be ruthless and cold-blooded. This misconception grew out of Ford's habit of following through all of his plans with persistence. The majority of people are ready to throw their aims and purposes overboard and give up at the first sign of opposition or misfortune. A few carry on despite all opposition until they attain their goal. These few are the Fords, Carnegies, Rockefellers, and Edisons. There may be no heroic connotation to the word persistence, but the quality is to character what carbon is to steel. The building of a fortune generally involves the application of the entire 13 factors of this philosophy. These principles must be understood. All who accumulate money must apply them with persistence. If you are reading this book with the intention of applying the knowledge it conveys, the first test of your persistence will come when you begin to follow the 6 steps described in the second chapter. Unless you are one of the 2 out of every 100 who already have a definite goal at which you are aiming and a definite plan for its attainment, you may read the instructions and then carry on with your daily routine, never complying with those instructions. The author is checking you up at this point because lack of persistence is one of the major causes of failure. Moreover, experience with thousands of people have proved that lack of persistence is a weakness common to the majority of people. It is a weakness that may be overcome by effort. The ease with which lack of persistence may be conquered will depend entirely upon the intensity of one's desire. The starting point of all achievement is desire. Keep this constantly in mind. Weak desires bring weak results, just as a small amount of fire makes a small amount of heat. If you find yourself lacking in persistence, this weakness may be remedied by building a stronger fire under your desires. Continue to read to the end, then go back to chapter 2 and start immediately to carry out the instructions given in the 6 steps. The eagerness with which you follow these instructions will indicate clearly how much or how little you will really desire to accumulate money. If you find that you are indifferent, you may be sure that you have not acquired the money consciousness which you must possess before you can be sure of accumulating a fortune. Fortunes gravitate to people whose minds have been prepared to attract them, just as surely as water gravitates to the ocean. In this book may be found all of the stimuli necessary to attune any normal mind to the vibrations that will attract the object of one's desires. If you find you are weak in persistence, center your attention upon the instructions contained in chapter 10 on power, a mastermind group. This is the group where you can develop persistence through the cooperative efforts of the members of this group. You will find additional instructions for the development of persistence in Chapter 4 on autosuggestion and Chapter 12 on the subconscious mind. Follow the instructions outlined in these chapters until your habit nature hands over to your subconscious mind a clear picture of the object of your desire. From that point on, you will not be handicapped by lack of persistence. Your subconscious mind works constantly while you are awake and while you are asleep. Occasional effort to apply these rules will be of no value to you. To get results, you must apply all of the rules until their application becomes a fixed habit within you. In no other way can you develop the necessary money consciousness. Poverty is attracted to one whose mind is favorable to it, as money is attracted to one whose mind has been deliberately prepared to attract it, and through these same laws. Poverty consciousness will voluntarily seize the mind that is not occupied with money consciousness. A poverty consciousness develops without conscious application of habits favorable to it. The money consciousness must be created to order, unless one is born with such a consciousness. Catch the full significance of the statements in the preceding paragraph, and you will understand the importance of persistence in the accumulation of a fortune. Without persistence, you will be defeated before you even start. With persistence, you will win. If you have ever experienced a nightmare, you will realize the value of persistence. As you are lying in bed, half awake, with a feeling that you are about to suffocate, you are unable to turn over or to move a muscle. You realize that you must begin to regain control of your muscles. Through persistent effort of willpower, you finally manage to move the fingers of one hand. By continuing to move your fingers, you extend your control to the muscles of your arm until you can lift it. Then you gain control on the other arm in the same manner. You finally gain control over the muscles of one leg, and then you extend it to the other leg. Then, with one supreme effort of will, you regain complete control over your muscular system, and you snap out of the nightmare. The trick has been turned step by step. You may find it necessary to snap out of your mental inertia through a similar procedure, moving slowly at first, then increasing your speed until you gain complete control over your will. Be persistent no matter what. How slowly you may at first have to move. With persistence will come success. If you select your mastermind group with care, you will have it in at least one person who will aid you in the development of persistence. Some people who have accumulated great fortunes did so because of necessity. They developed the habit of persistence because they were so closely driven by circumstances they had to become persistent. There is no substitute for persistence. It cannot be supplanted by any other quality. Remember this in the beginning, and it will hearten you when the going may seem difficult and slow. Those who have cultivated the habit of persistence seem to enjoy insurance against failure. No matter how many times they are defeated, they finally arrive up near the top of the ladder. Sometimes it appears there is a hidden guide whose duty is to test people through all sorts of discouraging experiences. Those who pick themselves up after defeat and keep on trying arrive, and the world cries, "Bravo! I knew you could do it." The hidden guide lets one enjoy great achievement without passing the persistence test. Those who can't take it simply do not make the grade. Those who can take it are bountifully rewarded for their persistence. They receive, as their compensation, whatever goal they are pursuing. That is not all. They receive something infinitely more important than material compensation. The knowledge that every failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. A few people know from experience the soundness of persistence. They are the ones who have not accepted defeat as being anything more than temporary. They are the ones whose desires are so persistently applied that defeat is finally changed into victory. We who stand on the sidelines of life see the overwhelmingly large number of people who go down in defeat, never to rise again. We see the few who take the punishment of defeat as an urge to greater effort. These, fortunately, never learn to accept life's reverse gear. But what we do not see, what most of us never suspect of existing, is the silence but irresistible power which comes to the rescue of those who fight in on the face of discouragement. If we speak of this power at all, we call it persistence, and let it go at that. One does not possess persistence, one does not achieve noteworthy success in any calling. A good example of the power of persistence is show business. From all over the world, people have come to Hollywood seeking fame, fortune, power, love, or whatever it is the human beings call success. Once in a great while, someone steps from the long procession of seekers, and the world hears that another person has mastered Hollywood. But Hollywood is not easily nor quickly conquered. It acknowledges talent, recognizes genius, and pays off in money only after one has refused to quit. The secret is always inseparably attached to one word: persistence. Bruce Lee, the actor who made us conscious of the Asian martial arts, might have been forgotten long ago were it not for his persistence in reaching his movie stardom. Lee arrived in America from China with nothing but a dream and the capacity of hard work. During his youth, he studied and mastered Kung Fu and later became a teacher of this art. However, his real goal was to be an actor.
Please allow us to pay a few bills and take a station break as we patronize our wonderful sponsors. We'll be right back with the Relevance Podcast.
He obtained minor roles in a few films and a few TV programs. But he felt his great break came when he learned that the producers of a new television series called Kung Fu were looking for an actor who knew the martial arts for the starring role. His screen test was successful, and he looked forward to being given the role. But to his great disappointment, another actor, David Carradine, was chosen. Disillusioned, he was ready to give up acting and go back to teaching. When members of the Asian community heard of this, he was deluged with letters asking him not to give up. Soon the word spread to movie fans of all races, and Lee made up his mind to keep seeking new roles. He never gave up. He took roles in several films, and his reputation as an actor and the proponent of the martial arts made him a household name throughout the world. He took the study of martial arts from being limited to Asian countries to becoming universally respected. Although he died at an age of 32, his fame has lived after him. Bruce Lee is not only still remembered and admired by fans, many of whom were not even born when he made his movies, but TV series and early films have been made into videos and are still highly popular all over the world. Persistence is a state of mind, so it can be cultivated. Like all states of mind, persistence is based upon definite causes, including definiteness of purpose. Knowing what you want is the first and perhaps the most important step toward the development of persistence. A strong motive forces you to surmount many difficulties. Number 2, desire. It is comparatively easy to acquire and maintain persistence in pursuing the object of intense desire. Number 3, self-reliance. Believe in your ability to carry out a plan encourages you to follow through the plan with persistence. Self-reliance can be developed through the principle described in Chapter 4 on autosuggestion. Definiteness of plans, organized plans, even though they may be weak and entirely impractical, encourage persistence. Accurate knowledge, knowing that your plans are sound based upon experience or observation, encourages persistence. Guessing instead of knowing destroys persistence. Cooperation, sympathy, understanding, and harmonious cooperation with others tend to develop persistence. Willpower, the habit of concentrating your thoughts upon the building of plans for the attainment of a definite purpose leads to persistence. Habit. The 8th and final, persistence is the direct result of habit. The mind absorbs and becomes part of the daily experiences upon which it feeds. Fear, the worst of all enemies, can be effectively cured by forced repetition of acts of courage. Everyone who has seen active service in war knows this. Before leaving the subject of persistence, take an inventory of yourself. Determine in what particular, if any, you are lacking in essential qualities related to persistence. Measure yourself courageously, point by point, and see how many of these 8 factors of persistence you lack. Real enemies that stand between you and noteworthy achievement. Here you will find not only the symptoms indicating weakness of persistence, but also the deeply seated subconscious causes of this weakness. Study the list carefully and face yourself squarely if you really wish to know who you are and what you are capable of doing. These are the weaknesses that must be mastered by all who accumulate riches. Number 1, failure to recognize and clearly define exactly what you want. Number 2, procrastination, with or without cause, usually backed up with a formidable array of excuses. Number 3, lack of interest in acquiring specialized knowledge. Number 4, indecision, the habit of passing the buck on all occasions instead of facing issues squarely. Number 5, the habit of relying upon excuses instead of creating definite plans for the solution of problems. Number 6, self-satisfaction. There is but little remedy for this affliction and no hope for those who suffer from it. Number 7, indifference, usually reflected in your readiness to compromise on all occasions rather than meet opposition and fight it. Number 8, the habit of blaming others for your mistake and accepting unfavorable circumstances as being unavoidable. Number 9, weakness of desire due to neglect in the choice of motives that impel action. Number 10, willingness, even eagerness to quit at the first sign of defeat, based upon one or more of the 6 basic fears. Number 11, lack of organized plans, placed in writing where they may be analyzed. Number 12, the habit of neglecting to move on ideas or to grasp opportunity when it presents itself. Number 13, wishing instead of willing. Number 14, the habit of compromising with poverty instead of aiming at riches. A general absence of ambition to be, to do, and to own. Number 15, searching for all the shortcuts to riches, trying to get rich without giving a fair equivalent, usually reflected in the habit of gambling or endeavoring to drive sharp bargains. Number 16, fear of criticism, failure to create plans and to put them into action because of what other people will think, do, or say. This enemy belongs at the head of the list because it generally exists in the subconscious mind without being recognized. Let us examine some of the symptoms of the fear of criticism. The majority of people permit relatives, friends, and the public at large to so influence them that they cannot live their own lives because they fear criticism. Huge numbers of people make mistakes in marriage, stand by the bargain, and go through life miserable and unhappy because they fear criticism that may follow if they correct the mistake. Who has submitted to this form of fear knows the irreparable damage it does by destroying ambition, self-reliance, and the desire to achieve. Millions of people neglect to acquire belated educations after having left school because they fear criticism. Countless numbers of men and women, both young and old, permit relatives to wreck their lives in the name of duty because they fear criticism. Duty does not require any person to submit to the destruction of their personal ambitions and to the right to live their life in their own way. People refuse to take chances in business because they fear the criticism that may follow if they fail. The fear of criticism in such cases is stronger than the desire for success. Too many people refuse to set high goals for themselves or even neglect selecting a career because they fear the criticism of relatives and friends who may say, "Don't aim so high. People will think you are crazy." When Andrew Carnegie suggested that I devote 20 years to the organization of a philosophy of individual achievement, my first impulse of thought was fear of what people might say. The suggestion set up a goal for me far out of proportion to any I had ever conceived. As quick as a flash, my mind began to create and eliminate excuses, all of them traceable to the inherent fear of criticism. Something inside me said, "You can't do it. The job is too big and requires too much time. What will your relatives think of you? How long will you earn a living? No one has ever organized a philosophy of success, so what right do you believe you can do it? Who are you, anyway, to aim so high? Remember your humble birth. What do you know about philosophy? People will think you're crazy, and they did. Why hasn't some other person done this before now?"
Please allow us to pay a few bills and take a station break as we patronize our wonderful sponsors. We'll be right back with the Relevance Podcast.
These and many other questions flashed into my mind and demanded attention. It seemed as if the whole world had suddenly turned its attention to me with the purpose of ridiculing me into giving up all desire to carry out Mr. Carnegie's suggestion. I had a fine opportunity then and there to kill off ambition before it gained control of me. Later in life, after having analyzed thousands of people, I discovered that most ideas are stillborn and need the breath of life injected into them through definite plans of immediate action. The time to nurse an idea is at the time of its birth. Every minute it lives gives it a better chance of surviving. The fear of criticism is at the bottom of the destruction of most ideas that never reach the planning and action stage. Another good example of a person who refused to accept the criticism of others and persisted in pursuing his dream is Fred Smith, whose success in creating and developing Federal Express was described in the previous chapter. Many people believe that material success is the result of favorable breaks. There is an element of ground for the belief, but those dependent entirely upon luck are nearly always disappointed because they overlook another important factor that must be present before one can be sure of success. It is the knowledge with which favorable breaks can be made to order. Let's take a look at Tom Monaghan, who created and grew Domino's Pizza from a one-store pizza parlor to a chain of several thousand home delivery outlets over a period of about 30 years. In 1989, he decided to sell his hugely successful company to concentrate instead on doing philanthropic work. However, his plan did not work. After 2.5 years, the company that purchased the chain almost drove it into bankruptcy, so Monaghan came back. It took much hard work and persistence to first rebuild and then expand the organization. Monaghan had developed the necessary determination early in his life. He had overcome a childhood of deprivation, poverty, and abuse to become a great entrepreneur. Now, once again, he mobilized all his efforts not only to return Domino to its original prominence, but to expand it to 6,000 stores, of which 1,100 are in countries other than the United States. Once that chain was back on its feet, Monaghan faced a new and serious challenge. Domino built its major promotion on its guarantee of fast delivery. It guaranteed the customer would get their pizza within 30 minutes. This led to a series of lawsuits from people who claimed injury from accidents caused by Domino's delivery drivers who were speeding to make the 30-minute deadline. The family of a woman allegedly killed by a Domino driver was awarded $3 million. The final blow came when another woman was awarded $78 million. After that, Domino dropped the 30-minute delivery guarantee. Despite this financial catastrophe, Monaghan refused to give up. He plowed more money, time, and energy into the company and brought it back once again. By his persistence and positive attitude, he forged ahead and inspired his team with the winning spirit that has made Domino number one in its industry. Examine the next 100 people you meet. Ask them what they want most in life, and 98 of them will not be able to tell you. If you press them for an answer, some will say security, many will say money, a few will say happiness, others will say fame and power, and still others will say social recognition, ease in living, ability to sing, dance, or write, but none of them will be able to define these terms or give the slightest indication of a plan by which they hope to attain these vaguely expressed wishes. Riches do not respond to wishes. They respond only to definite plans, backed by definite desires, through constant persistence. So how do we develop persistence? There are 4 principal steps that lead to the habit of persistence. They call for no great amount of intelligence, no particular level of education, but little time or effort. These necessary steps are: number 1, a definite purpose backed by a burning desire for its fulfillment. Number 2, a definite plan expressed in a continuous action. Number 3, a mind closely, tightly against all negative and discouraging influence, including negative suggestions of relatives, friends, and acquaintances. Number 4, a friendly alliance with one or more persons who will encourage you to follow through with both plans and purpose. These 4 steps are essential for success in all walks of life. The entire purpose of the 13 principles of this philosophy is to enable you to take these 4 steps as a matter of habit. They are the steps by which you may control your economic destiny. They are the steps that lead to the freedom and independence of thought. They are the steps that lead to riches in small or great quantities. They are the steps that lead the way to power, fame, and worldly recognition. They are the steps that guarantee faith. Hello, everyone. This is Mike. I'd like to take this moment to say thanks for listening. You can also support this podcast with a small monthly donation to help sustain future episodes. You can commit to $10.99, $4.99, or as little as 99 cents per month. That will go a long way towards allowing this channel to grow. As always, thanks for listening to the Relevance Podcast. Favorable breaks. They are the steps that convert dreams into physical realities. They are the steps that lead also to the mastery of fear, discouragement, and indifference. There's a magnificent reward for all who learn to take these 4 steps. It is the privilege of writing your own ticket and of making life yield whatever price is asked. What mystical power gives people of persistence the capacity to master difficulties? Does the quality of persistence set up in your mind some form of spiritual, mental, or chemical activity that gives you access to supernatural forces? Does infinite intelligence throw itself on the side of the person who still fights on after the battle has been lost, with the whole world on the opposing side? These and many other similar questions have arisen in my mind as I have observed men like Henry Ford, who started from scratch and built an industrial empire of huge proportions with little ease in the way of beginning, but persistence. Or Thomas A. Edison, who, with less than 3 months of schooling, became the world's leading inventor and converted persistence into the talking machine, the moving picture machine, and the incandescent light, to say nothing of 100 other useful inventions. I had the happy privilege of analyzing both Mr. Edison and Mr. Ford year by year over a long period, and the opportunity to study them at close range. I therefore speak from actual knowledge that I say that I have found no quality save persistence in either of them that remotely even suggested the major source of their stupendous achievements. As one makes an impartial study of successful people, one is drawn to the inevitable conclusion that persistence, concentration of effort, and definiteness of purpose are the major sources of their achievements. A good example of determination and persistence is Howard Schultz, the Starbucks man. It takes a person with vision, fortitude, and unwavering confidence to make a new concept succeed. Schultz was hired to manage retail sales and marketing for a small coffee distributor who had a few retail outlets in Seattle. He was 29 and just married. He and his wife left their home in New York City to accept his new job. About a year later, Schultz visited Italy on a buying trip. As he wandered around Milan, he noticed how important coffee was to the Italian culture. Typically, the workday starts with a cup of rich coffee at a coffee bar. After work, friends and colleagues once again meet at the coffee bar for a leisurely stop before heading home. It is a center of Italian social life. Schultz visualized this transferred to America. It had never been done, but he felt it would work because of the high quality of Starbucks coffee. It became Schultz's obsession. He was determined to build a national chain of cafes based on the Italian coffee bar, but the Starbucks owners were reluctant. They were in the wholesale coffee bean business. The restaurants they owned were only a small part of their operation. To implement his goal, Schultz left Starbucks and planned a new company. In 1986, Schultz opened his first coffee bar in Seattle. It was an immediate success. Schultz soon opened another one in Seattle and a third in Vancouver. The following year, he brought the Starbucks company and adopted its immediate success. Schultz soon opened another in Seattle and a third in Vancouver. The following year, he bought the Starbucks company and adopted its name for his enterprise. Schultz believes that the quality of Starbucks will one day alter how everyday Americans conduct their lives. If Schultz has his way, a cup of Starbucks will become a basic part of American culture. His concept has paid off. Starbucks sales have increased 9-fold for every year since 1988. Schultz envisioned hundreds of Starbucks coffee shops across America where business people would stop on their way to work and come to after work to relax. Shoppers would stop for a pick-me-up. Young people would meet their dates over coffee rather than cocktails. Families would come for refreshment before or after the movie. Starbucks incurred losses for 3 straight years, more than $1 million in 1989 alone, but Schultz never gave up. He had a firm conviction that this was the way to build a company and that the losses would soon turn into profits. His Seattle stores were profitable. Starbucks spread slowly into other cities: Vancouver, Portland, Los Angeles, Denver, and Chicago, and later to the eastern cities as well as overseas. Starbucks has become a household name all over the world, an exemplary of American marketing ingenuity, and it has made Howard Schultz one of the world's richest people.
As always, thanks for listening in on the show. And be sure to check out Mike's book, A Simple Guide to Child Support Redemption, available on Amazon.com, or his mobile app, Child Support Made Simple, CSMSX, available through the Google Play Store. And for the latest in current events and videos that really matter, be sure to log on to Mike's YouTube page, author Mike R. Aikins, or his website at www.relevancepodcast.com.